It is that time of the year. Fantasy basketball is here. Today, I'm going over 5 breakout candidates for the 2024-25 NBA season. Guys, I'm expecting to take a huge step forward this upcoming year. Let's not waste your time. Let's hop right into 5 breakout players for NBA fantasy basketball. First guy I'm bringing up, Jaylen Johnson, very popular breakout candidate, and for good reason. Last year, he stepped into a prominent role for this Atlanta Hawks team, and he had some very impressive numbers. 16 points, 8.5 rebounds, over 3 assists to go along with a steal and block combined for around 2 per game while shooting 50% from the floor. Now, the only hiccup in Jaylen Johnson's game is going to be that free throw number, 73%. It is something to consider. But if you're punting free throw percentage, everything across the board is very good for Jaylen Johnson, who I expect to take another leap forward this year. In limited time without DeJounte Murray last year, which he's going to have all of this 2024 season, DeJounte Murray dealt to the New Orleans Pelicans in the offseason. He was a high usage guy for this Hawks team. Obviously, Trae Young got to dribble the air out of the basketball. But DeJounte Murray also had 26.7% usage rating. Pretty high number for the talented guard. But in limited time without DeJounte on the floor, Jaylen Johnson was giving you 13 rebounds a game, 5 assists, a steal and a half per game to go along with 1 block in 36 minutes of action. That's numbers I expect he can provide this year. Now, I don't expect him to go from 8.5 to 13 rebounds, but I don't see why he can't average a double-double on a nightly basis. While the points per game were at 16 last season, I expect him to get more shots up with DeJounte removed from this offense. I think he can creep up to that 19 to 20 points per game mark to go along with those double-digit rebounds, a slight bump in assists with the ball in his hands more often. And I don't think we have to be concerned about the increase in volume in his shots, considering he's a 50% field goal guy from the floor. So getting 2 combined steals and blocks a game, very good on the defensive side. And I think he can get over a 3 per game given the added usage here in Atlanta. Very excited about Jaylen Johnson this year in fantasy. My second guy, also Jaylen, but this time Jaylen Williams for the Oklahoma City Thunder. I was hesitant to put him on this list because he may have already, quote-unquote, broken out. But I expect another leap forward. This young, talented player along Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Now, last year, the numbers were impressive. 19 points, 4 rebounds to go along with 4.5 assists, while shooting 54% from the field, 81% from the free throw line, and getting you over a 3.5 per game. Now, similar to Jaylen Johnson, I also think the departure of a guard is going to facilitate the ball in his hands more often, but this time it's going to be Josh Giddey for the Oklahoma City Thunder, leaving for Chicago in that trade for Alex Caruso. We know Caruso is a much lower usage player than what profiles with Josh Giddey. While Giddey did have to take a backseat last year, in his career, he's a 23% usage guy. I think Alex Caruso is going to be much lower than that. He's a defensive guy. Last year in the playoffs, at the end of the season, we saw Jaylen Williams take everything to another level, which I think is a glimpse of what we might be seeing this upcoming regular season. His points were pretty consistent, still at 19 points per game, but he got his rebounds up to 7 rebounds a game, 5.5 assists, and also getting 2 combined steals and blocks, 1.5 steals, half a block per game. Now, he does get some added minutes in the playoffs as the rotation shrinks, but I do think you're going to be seeing a little bit more of Jaylen Williams this year with that Josh Giddey leaving. I mean, his presence on offense is going to be needed more. And when you trade a guy getting 23.5 usage on this team and Josh Giddey in his career, it's just going to open up the floor for Jaylen Williams to take that next step in his development. Shai is obviously the guy for the Thunder, but I think Jaylen Williams is an excellent 2 that's going to establish himself this year in fantasy basketball across the board, a great category leagues player. Now, my next guy is kind of the exact opposite, not really a category league guy, but in points league, Cam Thomas. I'm drinking the Kool-Aid this year. Now, people want to compare him to what we had with Jordan Poole last season with a lot of opportunity for a struggling team, and Jordan Poole flat on his face. But I don't think Cam Thomas is going to do that. I think I like the player in Thomas more. I just believe Cam Thomas is a much better value this year. You're getting Thomas way cheaper than what you had with Jordan Poole last season. With the trading of Mikal Bridges, Cam Thomas is going to be relied heavily for this Brooklyn team if they want to be any sort of competitive this year. When Cam Thomas is given the opportunity, he has made the most of it in a very short sample in 2022, 2 seasons ago. In games where he played over 30 minutes, he was averaging over 30 points per game. Now, obviously, it's a small sample size, so I don't want to take too much into that, and I don't expect him to average 30 points a game. But last season, over the last 20 games of the regular season, Cam Thomas was averaging 25.5 points per game, 4.5 rebounds to go along with just under 4 assists, only 2 turnovers a game, while shooting 44% from the field and 86% from the free throw line, also giving you over 2 threes. Now, you want to say he was the only guy in Brooklyn at the time. Mikal Bridges was healthy at the end of the season. Cam Johnson dealt with some injuries, but he was still playing for most of these games where Cam Thomas took over. While the Stevens averages were only at around 22 points per game, I think we might be seeing him inch up to 24 to 25 points a game this year, taking that extra leap. And like I said, it's just cheaper than what you had to pay for Jordan Poole last year for kind of a similar player and build. I think Thomas is a better shot creator. I think he gets his shot much easier, which was a problem for Poole. Steph Curry made his life a lot easier. Cam Thomas, I think, gets it on his own. And while he doesn't profile to be the greatest defender, he has been working on his defensive ability. So Cam Thomas, getting him late, I'm not shying away from drafting him. I think he's due for a big year in Brooklyn, where there's very little left remaining on that team. My next breakout candidate, Trey Murphy. Now, I got to put a caveat to this. Trey Murphy is dealing with a hamstring injury. He's going to be reevaluated in a couple of weeks, going to miss the start of the regular season. But I think you can get a discount on guys fading him because of this injury. He's going to start slow, but if you can put him on IR, get a free roster spot, I don't mind taking him late, especially in category leagues. Not really a points league player, but in category leagues, I'm pretty excited about Trey Murphy. We don't really want to be drafting injured players, but this is a guy I will make an exception for. I think he's got a great opportunity in New Orleans. Now, they do add in DeJounte Murray, but this team needed a defensive stopper in its backcourt. CJ McCollum is pretty much a revolving door in that backcourt. DeJounte Murray going to add a much better defensive presence there. But this front court for New Orleans, where I expect Trey Murphy to play more than likely the power forward position, they lose Jonas Valanciunas in free agency to Washington. They lose Larry Nance, who is basically getting center minutes predominantly late in games for Jonas when he had to come off the floor for defensive reasons. Larry Nance goes to Atlanta in that DeJounte Murray trade. They do bring in Daniel Tice. They draft a center out of Baylor, but he is incredibly raw. I don't expect him to have much of a role this rookie season. Trey Murphy and Herb Jones, I guess, profile to be your centers, as I don't think Daniel Tice is going to get a crazy amount of minutes. He is a good player and can provide some help there, but Trey Murphy, I think he's set up to crush here. A valuable floor spacer. I mean, he's not just a shooter. He can get to the rim. He was averaging 14.5 points last year. He gets you a steal per game. The free throw percentage is over 80%. I do want to reiterate, he is not a points league player. Do not draft him in your points leagues, but getting him late in category leagues, buy this dip for this injury, put him on your IR, and reap the rewards later on. He's getting you 3 triples per game to go along with the steal, and I just think he is a great player and a great fit for this Pelicans team, and I think he's going to have a very good season for them. That's the main reason I want to be drafting him late, especially now with this hamstring injury that's going to plummet him down draft boards. Another guy dealing with some injuries we want to be buying while they're cheap, Mark Williams for the Charlotte Hornets. Again, might not be ready for the start of the regular season, but this is a very long NBA fantasy basketball year. I don't mind getting a guy much cheaper than he normally would be, considering he's going to be limited or miss the first 2 weeks of the regular season. This is the long play here from Mark Williams. Last season, in 26 minutes of work, he was right under 13 points and 10 rebounds per game, while just under 1 steal and just over 1 block per game. But we've seen when Mark Williams is healthy, he's going to be the center for this Charlotte Hornets team, who, if they can stay healthy with LaMelo Ball, with Brandon Miller, Bridges, and Mark Williams, this team could be feisty in the East. It's just a matter of staying healthy. We've seen LaMelo Ball deal with injuries. We've seen Mark Williams himself deal with injuries very frequently in his NBA career. Now, is it too early to consider him injury prone? I think so. But if he's able to stay out there on the floor, when he's been given the opportunity in games where he gets 30 minutes of work, his numbers climb significantly. In 6 of his last 7 games with 30 minutes played, this is a rundown of what he's doing on the floor. 12 points, 12 rebounds, 11 and 15, 18 points, 18 rebounds, 11 and 16 rebounds, 27 points, 7 rebounds, and 22 points and 10 rebounds. This is just 6 of his last 7 with 30 minutes of work for this Hornets team. If he's able to stretch this over the course of the season, when he gets back healthy and on the floor, you're looking at a very promising pick in fantasy, getting him cheap due to this injury. For a young and upcoming center, giving you very solid stats when available. That's the main reason I have him on this list. I was considering his teammate in Brandon Miller for this list. The last 10 games of Brandon Miller's 2023 season were impressive, but maybe a lot of that is due to LaMelo Ball's absence. So when LaMelo comes back to this fold, I think that is going to hurt Brandon Miller. So that's why I left him off this list, even though he was in consideration. Let me know what you think of these 5 guys. We started with Jaylen Johnson for the Atlanta Hawks, turned to Jaylen Williams, 2 guys we think will profit from some high usage guards leaving their teams. Then we went for Cam Thomas, a guy we think can explode in points league, nearly reaching 25 points per game. And last, we followed it with a category league guy in Trey Murphy and Mark Williams, who are dealing with injuries. We have to put that asterisk on there because their production in the beginning of the season will not be there. Trey Murphy's going to miss some time. Mark Williams may be playing on opening night. I don't think so. But even if he is, I expect them to ramp these 2 players up very slowly for the long haul of the NBA season, where I think in the second half of the season, you could see great production from them. Trey Murphy strictly in your category leagues, but Mark Williams, I think, provides value across the board. That's going to do it. Let me know who you think is breaking out in 2024. Are these guys going to be solid picks in fantasy, or are you not buying the hype surrounding these 5 players? Let me know in the comment section. Hit that like button and subscribe if you want to see more fantasy basketball content. We're going to have a sleepers video coming out very shortly. But thank you guys for watching. We'll see you guys next time with another episode of the Fantasy Birds.